Hello! So, we're here with something a little different, a little, what's the word? A little more, I don't know, I'm forgetting the word that I was going to call it, but this is a little more analysis than playing. Pokemon Red has just ended a couple days ago, and I haven't had time to record, and I actually have a study session to go to in about an hour. And with this time, I kind of was studying. I was like, you know what? I want to talk more about Pokemon. And I don't want to start Crystal yet. I'm still playing my team on that. And I kind of want to go over something that I talked about quite a bit throughout my playthrough. And that was how useful Pokemon is in-game. And everyone can tell you the competitive aspects, and really it's pretty easy to play competitively on a medium level in Red, Blue, and Yellow just because there's only a certain amount of Pokemon that are good. But in game, a lot of people argue this, argue that. They have nostalgia factor. They have really personal reasons for why a Pokemon's good in game. And some people try and be like, oh, you save turns for this, and blah, blah, blah. This is faster for a full team. Now, if we want to go full team, we just start with freaking Blastoise right here, and we just go and call it a day. That's, if we're trying to speedrun, that's what you go with. And that's how people have found the fastest times for, without 000 for your time. And so this is kind of just my overview of every single one. You can see them, and I'm gonna go through and describe what the tier lists are, and then maybe get into some detail about why I think certain Pokemon go here versus others. And I want to say this before I begin on this, it is my opinion. If you have an argument that you feel that maybe Gyarados should be higher because its special is good in this generation, or maybe Dragonite is in a weird spot, which it is, but these are my opinions, and I feel like they're backed by my knowledge and some other things I've looked up real quick to remind myself how Gen 1 is. I just played it, but this is not 100% accurate. It constantly changes. People find new ways to play certain games, but with my play style, I feel like this tier list would be drastically different. I fight every wild battle, and this is kind of going into the generic, you play the game, you click one move, and you clear a route. The goal is to clear the route the fastest and the easiest, without that much grinding, without getting caught out and killed and going to a Pokemon Center. This is the easiest and most reliable, I guess, would be the way. And so we have top tier. There's only two there because they wrecked the game entirely. We have the high tier, which is filled with 12 Pokemon for me. Then we have the medium tier or middle tier. This is 18 Pokemon, and some of these look really strange and out of place, and I'll get to that. We have low tier, which is 18 again. We have bottom tier. This is, you're really scraping the bottom, as it said. And some of these have weird reasons why they're there as well, and there's only 12 here. And then we have the garbage tier. I had to put these in because they're really, really bad for in-game, and even competitively, they're really bad there. It's just, they're garbage. And then not tiered, I'm going to get into why Moltres is there, but Mew and Mewtwo, obviously, they're not accessible within the main game. Mewtwo in the post game and Mew through happenings. The reason I'm going to just say Moltres arrives way too late, and it's really hard to place him because he has such a rough time against the Pokemon trainers he does fight. And I would probably put him at low tier C based on my list right now, and probably be the top one there just because of stats and level it appears at alone. But I don't feel comfortable tiering Moltres that way because it doesn't have that many battles. It has a total of 5 major ones, and that it sucks in 3 of them. It's absolute garbage. So I am not going to tier. So we're going to start with top tier. And First one should come to no surprise. Alakazam completely breaks the game. If Mewtwo was found way earlier, it would break the game too. But Alakazam is the second best, and I don't need to explain this. Psychic in this generation breaks it, and Alakazam is the best user of it. If you can't fully evolve it, even Kadabra does incredibly well, and it goes into about middle tier here. It just needs the extra speed and special to really abuse itself. Articuno, I didn't really mention this in my playthrough, but Articuno being an ice type is incredible for in-game. When you have some of the hardest threats in this game, the biggest weaknesses are entirely based on like ice. So you need Dragon. Dragon is a big type to fight. Fire is resistant. Dragon is resistant to fire. That's hard to apparently get straight. So ice really abuses this. It murders fire types in this generation because it's neutral, and so it doesn't have to worry about that. The only fight Articuno really struggles with in the Elite Four is Bruno's Onyx, Lorelei. Not really, not in Lorelei's case. Maybe Articuno just does incredibly well. I'm trying to think of fights, and Blaine is really the only one, and even then you do neutral, and at that point Articuno's level 50. It's really the level it comes out. And we're gonna go straight into high tier. I hope that explains a lot of my thought process. If not, explain your own and we'll combat it out in the comments. But we have the high tier, and this is really if you go and check out in-game tier lists, this is where I feel it falls apart, because people kind of miss the point of building in-game tier lists. This is supposed to give you ease of access and ease of just no grinding, you play the game. That's what an in-game tier list, and this gives you ease. Or it's just a good Pokemon. That also is a thing. Zapdos is on here, and the reason is not top tier, and this is the only reason, is because it can be walled. And that's the only reason. There's nothing else to say. It's a great Pokemon, even without Thunderbolt. It just can be walled. Starmie is great. The only thing that is kind of bad about it, if you're not willing to use a TM, it kind of just needs one TM, whether it's Psychic, Ice Beam, Blizzard, Thunderbolt, Thunder. It just needs a little bit to really get into top tier, and that's what puts it into high tier, because Articuno and Alakazam don't need any of it. They are great badass from the get-go, and they stay that way. Dugtrio is in the same boat as Starmie, except different. That's a weird analogy to say, but Dugtrio really shines because it doesn't need the Rock Slide TM like I used it on him. It really doesn't. Earthquake and Slash, that's all it needs. The only thing it's let down by is its stats. Its stats are really not there, and that's why it struggles. So it also comes in the perfect time. It gets plenty of fight in the gym it's located, Vermilion City. It trashes Lieutenant Surge, and it's really just a good spot. Jinx, the only reason it's this high up, even though it's one of a kind, and overall it doesn't look like a great Pokemon on paper, but because it's Ice and Psychic, which it's mostly the Ice type that really shows up, it really just, it has the boosted experience, making it easier for the player to not have to grind, and it's actually a worry to keep it under a certain level so it doesn't disobey you. But after the 8th gym, it has free reign to pretty much just farm it up. So there's nothing else to say besides, if you're not going to give it Psychic TM, its use goes down, but it's still a great Pokemon for your in-game team. Nidoking and Nidoqueen, if you don't know about Nidoking wrecking the first gen, then it's kind of weird that it's here. But the TM use, you can give it any TM and it learns it. It's a great physical attacker, and Nidoqueen kind of shares the same thing, except it learns Body Slam on its own, which is very good. It's a little more defensive, but it works in its favor. The main thing for these two, though, is how early they evolve. You can get into Mount Moon and get the Moonstone so early, and they evolve with level 16. Are you serious? I mean, that's the same thing with Alakazam. Except you're limited with Abra, and it takes a little bit of grinding to actually do it. But here, Nidoking, you go catch one, a Nidoran, and then you get it to Nidorino, and you have a Moonstone. There you go, you're wrecking the game. It's really good. And Clefable, high tier B, and these are kind of in order. They're sometimes rough, so don't take it too serious, but just know this is the tiers they're in. Clefable is kind of, if you look at it, it's a normal type. That was loud. But it comes from Mount Moon, and so it's a little hard to catch. And that's probably the only downside of it. It learns fantastic TMs. It gets great stab on Body Slam if you're willing to teach you that. And overall, Moonstone's all you need. It's fantastic. Tauros, I used one. You saw how powerful it was without being there the whole time. I don't know what fell actually now that I think of it. But, there it is. But the reason Tauros is so strong is because stab on his normal type moves, and there's not a lot of resistances that Earthquake can't handle. Actually, I think there's 0. But one of the things that makes Tauros so strong in comparison to some normal types is the attacking speed and crits. It's insane. Next is Hypno, and this is weird. I don't know if people understand how strong Hypno is in the first gen. Psychic types dominate. We know this. What if you have a psychic type that can hit physically too? Which one's that? Well, Hypno is here. Hypno has Headbutt, which it doesn't sound great, but Hypno is your best chance of taking on Sabrina's gym very easily. It just headbutts things, and it's resistance to psychic types, and it's immune in first gen to ghost types, so it's very strong. It learns psychic by itself, which some psychic types can't even claim, and it's a mini Alakazam that can hit physically. That's about it. Excuse me. But next is Lapras, and this is more along the ice type being so good in game. It defeats the flyers that appear everywhere, defeats the ground types that appear, and the water type gives it surf, stab, and it's a grind. Don't get me wrong, you saw me grind with it, but it's worth it. It walls Lorelei to hell and back. It trashes Bruno, even though it's super effective in quote. Lapras is still very tanky, and it could tank a hit if need be. Agatha can't do crap to it, and well, Lance is just weak to ice. So, and also does well against the rival, of course. Venusaur. Now this is a little nostalgic versus favoritism here. The reason I say Venusaur is so good is because it doesn't need a lot. It can do without Body Slam. Yeah, it kind of goes way down without it, but it sits here because it gives you plenty of time to form your team, and in a 6-party type scenario that you're going for, it works as a starter. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean it's your end-all be-all. There's still some problems with it, namely the level 55 Sleep Powder, which I didn't even get to in my playthrough. But it has Leech Seed, which is useful. It gets Growth, which it doesn't get that much use out of. It actually gets 0 now that I think of it. Razor Leaf is very useful because it always crits. And the only thing that's let down by, and the reason it's at this point, is because of its typing, and Team Rocket exists. And it's annoying. Next we have Cloistered. I don't really have much to say besides Water Ice. There's your type. And it's also the best user, in my opinion, of the Toxic Trap thing in this game, where you use Fire Spin, Wrap, Clamp, which is its claim to fame here. And Cloistered also hits hard. It's good. And there's really nothing else to say. It deserves its spot. You could probably switch Cloistered and Lapras. It really depends how you feel. I prefer Lapras because I really hate the back sprite for Cloistered. So there's that. We have Tentacruel, which is something I think I mentioned. Tentacruel is strong. It is incredibly strong. It's fast. And you're looking at the strongest Surf in the game, I believe. If I remember. I think he has the strongest Surf. I think I said this too. It learns Ice Beam, and that's good, and it's fast. There's really nothing else to say. The only weakness, Psychic. That really hurts. And that's about it. Charizard's next. This is another starter. And I'm going to say right now, the only reason it's up here is because it's the best fire type. And while fire is not very useful in this game, it has a valuable aspect of being able to just burn the grass type setup here. And that's about all I got on it. Charizard is just the best fire type, and its stats are decent. It has some trouble mid-game, but it kind of picks up a late game and does decent stuff. It has a hard time with most of the trainers, and that's why it's that low if you want to think about it that way, or it's that high. It's stuck there for a reason. Gengar, favoritism showing again. Gengar needs a lot of work. It needs the Thunderbolt TM or the Psychic TM. Thunderbolt preferred, but it needs one of those to be successful, and that's why it's there. It has 2 immunities, normal and fighting, and its special stat is insane. Gengar is just so good when you can give him the right, I don't even know, the right TMs, the right use, whatever. It's just that good. And then Jolteon is same boat as Gengar, so to say. It needs that Thunderbolt TM. If you're not giving it the Thunderbolt TM, it's in the garbage tier. It goes all the way down. It's not. Yeah, just don't. But Jolteon uses it incredibly well, and it hits hard. It's fast. It hits hard. What's not to like? And Gyarados is what is known as a weird Pokemon, to say the least. And the reason it's this low actually is because it starts with a Magikarp, and Magikarp is 20 levels of uselessness. Fantastic. But it becomes super strong in this game. I'll even show you real quick. You have 100 special, 125 attack, 81 speed, which if you're at even level will outspeed most of the in-game trainers. There's only rare cases of Electrode maybe outspeeding you, which at that point you shouldn't have Gyarados in. But it hits hard on both fronts, and here it has TMs to use. It can pick up Thunderbolt, it can use Ice Beam, it can use Surf, it can just use it. Golem is a little weird, but the reason is it comes at a terrible time for itself because you have Misty coming up. But my reasoning is, depending on your starter choice, you can actually just wall your rival. Now, if you picked Charizard or Blastoise, then you're not walling, but even then you wall most of his team. You defeat Lieutenant Surge, and you defeat a bunch of the flyers, and really it's useful. It's slightly faster than Rhydon, and it comes way earlier, so accessibility is really pulling through for it. Blastoise, the other starter, this is just here because it's a water type, and it's accessible to everyone at the start, and it shouldn't be that underleveled, and it's also the best soloing Pokemon in the game. I keep hitting my desk and it's probably picking up, but Blastoise is that good. And Slowbro and Snorlax. Now, the reason they are here and not higher is because they are slow. They're bound to take some damage every now and then on routes, probably all the time actually. And you could flip them around, do whatever you want. Body Slam on Snorlax, great. Amnesia with Psychic and Surf on freaking Slowbro is insane. They're both valuable. Except they're just slow. That's their only problem. Victreebel is here. I actually meant to put Vileplume here, but Victreebel, it doesn't matter here. Grass Poison, it gets access to Sword Stance. It actually has great attacking stats in this generation, which also means it's a little tanky actually. With 80 HP, it can tank some special defense, but you're not going to leave it there. And we'll actually go Vileplume. The only thing that changes is the attack stat, and it's a little slower. And yeah, that's pretty much it on that mark. I'm just going to go back because I like seeing overview. Vaporeon right here. This is the next evolution. And just because it's water type, that's actually really it. It shares similar stats to Blastoise. Besides the defense, its defense kind of bad. If you look at it real quick. Bam. But it does well. It's a great water type to pick up. But otherwise, yeah, that's all I got. It's generic water type. And I already talked about Vileplume. We have Dragonite. Now this is a little weird. It is incredibly strong. It is incredibly powerful even without its physical moves that I would get later. Dragon type doesn't have that great stat. It has 0 actually. I think Dragon Rage is the only move. Does it get Twister? I don't know if Twister... I can't remember right now. I'm blanking on that. But the reason it's this high is because it's that good once you fully evolve. Problem. It evolves at level 55. If you have 16 members, it's very unlikely you'll reach that. And with that, I can't put it any higher because that's just what it is. I'm sorry, Dragonite. You're stuck there. Omnistar comes very late in your adventure. It's a water type, so it automatically gets higher than some other Pokemon in the world. But the reason it's so good is because it's tanky. It's actually just probably one of your last chances at a true tank. And it hits incredibly hard to some of the main bosses within the Elite Four. And overall, the only problems is that it doesn't get a good rock stab. So, yeah. Next is Raichu, and the only reason it's here, it's incredibly walled, so it's same with Jolteon and Zapdos, and in Red Blue, you need to give the Thunderbolt to him. But the only reason it's here is because it comes really early, and is accessible to everyone. That's kind of it. Persian's also in a weird spot, and the only reason is to learn Slash really late. Insta-crit would have been nice, but you're relying on Bite for most of it. You're using Bubble Beam to kill the rock and ground types, like competitive, but in-game because that's what you're doing, and it's just... Persian isn't that great, but it does its job. Next is Sidra, and the reason it's here is pure water type again. Woo. And it just kind of fits right under Vaporeon in the water scale. And that's about it. It's accessible. It does alright. Nothing else really to say about it. Next is Dodrio, which is I think it's the first flying type. Besides, like, Gyarados and Dragonite, the generic crap that doesn't really use its flying type. Oh, Aerodactyl uses it for fly, but Dodrio hits hard, learns Tri Attack, good normal type attack. Drill Peck, incredibly powerful. It's fast, it hits hard. Problem, it gets walled, and it doesn't really have the bulk that some of these Pokemon do for being walled. And even when it does a lot, it doesn't do as much as, say, Jolteon when it's walled. It's just kind of there, and so that's where it's placed. Mr. Mime, the only reason it's here is because you get boosted experience. There you are. The only psychic type attack it learns by level up is Confusion. Fantastic. Awesome. That sucks. If it had learned psychic by level up, it would have been higher. And the reason it's also this high is because it's accessible to Thunderbolt. I think it can learn Thunderbolt by TM. It should. Yeah, I think it is. Magneton's next. Reason Magneton is right here is it's same thing as Raichu and Jolteon. It gets walled, except... No, not except, but its special is incredibly high, and it's a little more bulky than Jolteon, so it could take a hit in theory. I don't know why you would leave it out there, but that is a viable solution. If you need to, like, heal up a team member, Magneton could probably take a hit. Next one is Florin. It's actually really strange for me to see Flareon so high. And just, even though it's low tier, it's still higher than next generation, than generation after that. But the reason it's so high, it's its special and attack stat are then the same thing as Victreebel. They hit hard on both sides. problem. Victreebel is a grass and poison type. Florion's a fire type, and that's what sets their difference. If Florin wasn't a fire type, it would be incredible. Hitmonlee is here because it is the only viable fighting type without the use of submission. It uses high jump kick, which is a bad move in this game, but at least it's a fighting move that hits something. And it's just kind of here as the only fighting type worth of note. Besides a dual type that we'll get to in a second. Wigglytuff, Tough, the recents here, same as Clefable, evolves early. It's an H-Peach. We're playing some melee or something. It's an HP sponge, same like Chansey, except it does a little more. It learns Body Slam on its own, and it's alright. It's accessible early on. Moonstone evolution. What else? Executor is here for two reasons. One, incredible type, being it resists a lot. And two, if you give it a Psychic TM, it's very good. Problem, it needs the Psychic TM. And problem number two, it's very slow. And that's about it. And it kind of gets abused by a lot of the in-game trainers. Excuse me. And I kind of just want to say that it actually probably deserves to be lower. I'm just lazy. I'm not going to change it. So next one is Poliwrath. It's a water fighting type, which is weird. And so it does well. It also has the ability to learn Amnesia, which actually puts it in its spot. It would be slightly lower, but it's, I don't know, I think you should just de-evolve it somehow and give it to the old man and get Jinx for it. It's really just kind of there. It's water fighting. Cool. Water type generic stuff. And that's about it on that side of everything. Magmar is here because it can learn Psychic if you're willing to teach it. Its fire type is alright. It learns Flamethrower really late. It does get Fire Punch around 30s or 40? 43. 43 I believe it is. And it's just kind of there. I mean, it's a there fire type. It's worse than Flareon, so I mean. Next is Marowak. Generic ground type that doesn't have anything. It doesn't really show up at the best time. It gets screwed by Erica. It can kill Koga, but then it gets kind of trashed by Sabrina because it's slow. And it doesn't do well. That's about it. It does hit hard, though. In later generations. Fearow. Fearow is a terrible Dodrio. That's basically all I need to say about it. Except it does learn a couple moves. Drill Peck. I believe it learned Mirror Move. Congratulations, you have something that Dodrio does not. And that's about it. It also comes a lot earlier than Dodrio, and that's why it's even this high. If you really want to Flyer, Fearow's your best bet. Raticate. Raticate's in a weird spot, and you think those Rattatas that you've been fighting, your whole entire just journey is garbage. Raticate has a use in that it learns very many TMs throughout the game. It has a decent speed stat, as decent special, not great special, decent attack, and overall it's decent. It's early, it works, and it's just decent. Next one, Farfetch'd is in a weird spot, a lot of weird spots actually. And the reason Farfetch'd is here is, if you look at its stats, it's like, why? Why do they give it this stats? The reason it's here, it learns Sword Stance at level 23, which will give it its chance to do something until it gets Slash, and then it does alright. It's usable. It's not absolute god-awful, but it's not good either. And so I think Dodrio and Fearow are way better in comparison for a flying normal, but Farfetch'd is sometimes fun to use in Gen 1. Any other gen, don't use it though. Next is we have Weezing. Poison type, comes very late, and the reason it's here and Muck is not right beside it is because Weezing's special stat is decent and defensively, and it has some HP, and it's faster, and yeah, it's better poison type. Brown poison type is garbage, but yeah. That's about it. It comes late. Butterfree. Weird. I hate Butterfree, but you can't deny that it has some use for quite a while in the early game. It has the powders, it learns Confusion, gets Psybeam, and you can teach it Psychic if you want to waste your Psychic TM. But overall, it does what it's supposed to do in the early game, get you through it if you struggle a little bit. It evolves very fast, it does its job, and it struggles late game, and that's the reason it's so low. But otherwise, you can't really complain. And unlike this Pokemon beside it that would go and become powerhouses in later gens in competitive and even competitive for this generation, but even in game, it would all these would improve while Butterfree is stuck where it's at. Machamp, it's the best fighting type besides Poliwrath, and I even think it's better than Hitmonlee if it wasn't for the fact it relies on submission. Fantastic, which I've talked about before, and its fighting types are miserable in this generation. Wish it was Gen 5, huh? Electabuzz, same problems. It gets walled. Thunder Punch it learns incredibly late. The only thing I could say for positive is it doesn't rely on Thunderbolt TM. Thunder Punch works, but the problem is that you're in a spot where you could catch a Zapdos, and it's kind of like level 33 Electabuzz or level 50 Zapdos. Huh, they get walled by the same things. So it's kind of like, are you a fan of Electabuzz? Then go ahead, but yeah. Rapidash, it comes incredibly late again. These all seem to be coming incredibly late. But the reason it's this high is because it is the fastest user without any stat increases and crap like that, where it can, in fact, use Toxic Fire Spin, which is incredibly useful. And it also isn't that bad. It has a use. Fire types have a use, just not that many. Rhydon, the reason it is here is because it evolves so late. It doesn't get Earthquake by level up, and it's caught in the Safari Zone, which I struggle to catch a Tauros, which is one of my main members. Why the fuck would I look for a Rhydon that's slow, doesn't get Earthquake, and evolves very late? It's just not worth it. Next, Golduck, generic water type. Moving on. Primeape, fastest fighting type. Moving on. Muck, worst wheezing. Moving on. Seaking, generic water type. It does get Waterfall by level up. It's the only way to get it without using Metronome. So, yeah. Onyx. You know, when you're getting beat by a Rhydon that evolves at level 42 and appears in the Safari Zone, you know you just should give up. Kingler, wrong generation. It's actually not that bad. All these are kind of usable. They're bottom tier though for a reason. It's because they're very, like, you struggle. It's a handicap, so to say. Next is Chansey. Godsend and competitive. Don't get me wrong. Very, it was chosen. It was chosen. Don't get me wrong. In game though, you're not wasting, but you're using valuable TMs for a special tank. Most in-game trainers will use physical attacks for the point you're at. Poison moves and some statuses will be used, and it's kind of like, well, at least you could heal stall them. But next is Pincer. This is the strongest bug type in my opinion for Gen 1. Too bad. Strongest doesn't mean shit. Pincer is just, it should have been a fighting type at that point. It just hits hard with normal type attacks in the game and learns a fighting type submission. It's not that great. It's really not. It doesn't really do much. I mean, you look at its stats and you're like, ooh, 125. That's great. Defense, not bad. Special, eh. Speed, eh. I'm just gonna move on because I love Pincer and I don't want to highlight most of it. Next is Pidgeot. Everyone has used one of these. Even I've used one of these, sadly. Pidgeot is so annoyingly just, it doesn't do anything. It looks like it would do decent. It's an early flying type. Its stats are all around. They're not terrible, but they're better than Farfetch'd. You'd think it would be higher, but it doesn't learn any fucking moves. I'm sorry, but when Mirror Move is one of your main moves, you have a problem. And Fearow, you have a problem too, don't get me wrong. But Pidgeot is just... it's more just standard, like, I'm all around, here I am. I'm sorry, there are plenty all around Pokemon in here. You're terrible. Kabutops, the reason I put this really low is, unlike Omnistar, where it packs some decent special, and if we look at it, it's alright special, don't get me wrong, and great attack and great defense. The speed is faster. The problem, though, it doesn't really have moves that abuse. If you look at it, this is actually just Smogon being a bitch, but it does get Sword Stance. Problem, Body Slam is required. It also gets Slash, but that crits. Sword Stance is useless here. So, moving on. I'm actually not going to do that. Yeah. Venomoth. I really enjoy using Venomoth in some games. Here, it's poison. Look at that. That means you're screwed. Sorry, bud. And you're also Bug. You're screwed for life. It learns some Psychic type attacks, but otherwise there are better reasons to use... better reasons. There are more reasons to use another Psychic type attack than a Bug Poison that can't fly in no generation ever. Why is this team flying? Scyther, incredible speed, incredible attack. Doesn't get a Bug type attack at all. It gets Wing attack, I think. No, I think it just... it gets Sword Stance and Slash. Yay, fantastic. I mean, so does Farfetch'd, except it gets one more move than that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this list. The garbage Pokemon, I'm just going to say them: Porygon, Beedrill, Ditto, Tangela, Parasect, Aerodactyl, Golduck, RBY, Hitmonchan, and Lickitung. The only one that I could see being really doubted in this is RBY, and even then, it doesn't do a lot. It would probably be over Scyther, but I wanted Scyther. This basically just meant I didn't have to type bottom tier C and put one Pokemon. And it's... all these are very bad. Beedrill's incredibly bad. Porygon's incredibly bad. Ditto. Tangela could... in theory, I can see something. Don't recommend it. Parasect, its weaknesses... sorry, buddy. Excuse me. You struggle for life. Aerodactyl, I've explained that. It's a terrible flying type. Terrible rock type. Fast, hits hard. Too bad it dies when you breathe on it. Golbat, same problem, except you have no moves. Confuse Ray is standard in competitive play for a reason on this thing, because it has no other moves. That's just pathetic. RBY, poison type, I kind of already explained this. Hitmonchan, the reason I put it there is because I hate Hitmonchan. Fuck Hitmonchan. And its elemental punches are special in this gen. Actually, until 3rd gen, so it's kind of useless till then. Lickitung is garbage. It's actual slow garbage. That's all that needs to be said. And I went over the not tiered. I'll say again, Mewtwo. Non-game. Fantastic. Main game anyway. And yeah, that's about it for this. Moltres I've already explained. I feel it comes too late. And I'd put it actually around Flareon just because it starts at level 50. Maybe a little higher, but whatever. I've been talking a lot. Actually for 40 minutes. I can't believe it's been that long. But these are all the Pokemon that are fully evolved, appear in the game, and don't get me wrong, if you want to use a Pidgeot, you're welcome to. These are just my opinions on what makes the game pathetically easy, which it's already an easy game, so. But this is just my in-game tier list for Red Blue. Yellow has slight differences, but it's basically the same. Raichu actually goes up because it gets Thunderbolt. So, yeah, it does, because you can catch another Pikachu. And don't use your starter Pikachu because that thing's garbage. And it doesn't want to evolve for some reason. screw stat boost. And the music ended, so I'm going to end. That music was the Kanto Trainer Battle Dance remix by GlitchxCity. If you want to go check him out and hear some of his remixes, they're very good. And I'm going to give credit down below so you know, and he knows I don't like stealing stuff. And thank you to him for allowing me to use it and everyone else. Smogon is what I used here for this mini list. I'm actually in Gen 1 Stadium because it allows me. And otherwise, this is the in-game tier list from me to you in red, blue, and yellow, we'll say. Gen 1, and it has its uses, it has its flaws. Argue it if you want, but overall, I'll stand by this tier list. Even though Venusaur is probably a little higher, but we'll ignore that. So, next time we see Pokemon, I don't know if I'll go over competitive stuff in Gen 1 or just skip it because it's kind of boring. It really is. You see the same Pokemon over and over. And so is Gen 2. It's incredibly boring. But, so next time in Pokemon, we'll probably be in Johto. And, yeah, we'll be playing that. We'll be playing Pokemon Crystal. So, till then.